Welcome to On the Firing Line on the information station, AM 1440 KUHL. Information, education, news, and politics of firearms and ammunition is found here. If you have any questions, call us at 1-888-625-1440. That's 1-888-625-1440.
3 men armed with what appeared to be real guns, but were later determined to be air pistols, entered the Concertina Beer Hall in Milwaukee and demanded cash. The bar owner responded by retrieving a gun and firing at the criminals, striking one and causing the others to flee. As a former firefighter, the owner administered CPR to the wounded criminal before authorities could arrive at the scene, but the robber later died. Kochanski, the bar owner, later told a media outlet, in regards to his attempt to save the criminal, "That's who I am, you know. I'm a firefighter. Even though I don't have my badge anymore, I will always be a firefighter." The following night, the bar owner reopened his bar and was greeted by a throng of well-wishers. Milwaukee County prosecutors have noted that Kochanski will not face charges. The incident was the second time in 5 years that the bar owner was forced to protect himself. His customers at his bar at a 2008 Christmas party at the beer hall, the owner was forced to fire a .45 caliber pistol at a pair of robbers toting a sawed-off shotgun. This brought to you by the Journal Sentinel from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, August 16th, 2013.
You are on the firing line with Matt, Jim, and Joe today. Be a part of today's show by calling in at 1-888-625-1440, or if you're in the Santa Maria area, please give us a call at 928-1440.
All right. We do have Jason back with us today. He's going to help us talk about the difference between the Glock and the Smith & Wesson and what might be a better gun for you. Of course, that'll be your final choice, but I think we might have some good insight. Matt had actually brought this up last week. He said, "You know, Joe, we are a gun store. I mean, a gun show. So, hey, why don't we talk about guns once?"
Basically, we're just the politics and stuff are still at the forefront, but we're just kind of taking a little break from, just staying on that so much. But we are on top of it. Next week, we'll have some better info for you. And don't forget to go out and check on for yourself, about all these laws that are basically stripping us of our constitutional, rights.
Absolutely. And as always, you can go on Facebook, On the Firing Line with Matt and Joe. Look up today's show. Look up some of the new laws that are coming through. And I've been putting a lot of articles up about different firearms histories and talking about the Second Amendment, what our forefathers thought of. A lot of great stuff out there for you guys to get a hold of. So, Jason, how's it going?
It's going good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Let's have a phone conversation here with everybody on...
Yeah, right.
So it should be an interesting show today. This article that we just read, not too smart to rob a store with an airsoft gun.
Well, yeah, I mean, that shows you what they get. We know that most criminals are not the brightest. That right there kind of enhances that notion. This guy has now had to thwart 2 robberies with a live fire gun. And he's doing his job. It's unfortunate that these punks coming in trying to take his money and stuff. But, apparently this guy, what was his name? Kochanski knows how to handle himself. He was a former firefighter. And, I'm glad that he's still in business and was able to reopen the very next day. Good for him.
Absolutely. But
just something to think about, too, is when somebody comes in, it's not like us working at a business. This isn't our livelihood. For him, that's his livelihood. He owns the bar.
Right.
He, feeds his family with the income that he makes on that. And for 3 robbers to come in, one, completely idiotic to go in somewhere with an air gun thinking that that's going to make any difference. And then 2, to put somebody's life in jeopardy, they're going to defend themselves, which in all rights, I think we would all do that. If it's in a business that we own or if it's in our personal homes, we're going to defend ourselves, and we have every right to do so.
I'd have thrown a beer bottle at him.
That would have been the
Why
first.
waste the beer?
Well, yeah, there. I like what Jason said.
I don't know. Ammo's pretty expensive right now.
True, it's probably cheaper to get a 6-pack than a 20-pack.
Yeah,
But
unfortunately.
Imagine this: if this person had been in California, and with the politicians now trying to erode our Second Amendment right in this state and take away our right of self-defense, basically. What if this person didn't have a gun to defend himself? And maybe in the first case, when he had to defend himself from a guy with a sawed-off shotgun, where would he have stood after that had he not had a firearm and had he not had the ability to defend himself?
Yeah.
Well, and you look at the fact, too, that nowadays the criminals are so brazen, 25, 30, even 40 years ago, most crimes were not committed in broad daylight or during business, busy hours. Now we have people that it doesn't matter, daytime, busy, slow, you're home, at work.
Yep.
If he hadn't had a firearm to defend himself, he wouldn't have survived the first time. I mean, think about that.
My
They come in with
exactly.
an actual shot-off. Right. You come in with a sawed-off shotgun, what do you expect?
Yeah, nothing good.
Crazy.
Well, I think if he was in California, you mentioned if he was in California, I think if he was in California, not supposed to have a gun, and one of the patrons accidentally got shot by this air gun, didn't get killed or anything, but got hurt, would have sued the bar owner for not protecting him.
Civil liabilities,
that's
yeah.
probably
Right.
what it would have really
There's
happened.
also, and there's so many what ifs. Like we can what if this thing to death, but bottom line is he did what he had to do. He still has his bar. He defended it. The only person that got hurt was one of the 3 kooks that went in there in the first place. So I guess end of the story. Everybody wins.
But he was such a nice guy.
Yeah.
Isn't that the way it
he
always
was a
goes on
nice
the
guy.
news?
It
Yeah.
is the way it goes. And you know what? I could just see this being spun as, but they didn't have real guns. They didn't have to lose
yeah.
their life.
Well, and
That could have been
No,
my
the-
son.
I'm sure you guys have all
Go
seen
on.
some of the airsoft pistols. And I'm saying pistols, that look exactly like, say, a Glock or a Smith & Wesson M&P. I mean, you cannot tell the difference. So as soon as that little orange tip is gone, if somebody was pointing that at me, 100% I would think that was business time. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you have to think about this. There's been incidents, throughout time where people have walked in and they think for some reason if it's not the real thing, we'll still get away with it. Well, what do you expect when you walk in to a business that they're going to defend themselves? If you hold something up and it looks like a gun, well, guess what? You're going to get shot at like it's a real gun.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And it'll be justified, and in not just our eyes and not in just the shooter's eyes, but most likely in law enforcement eyes too.
Absolutely, because you ask any police officer that has to be or has been in a situation where they've had somebody walking around with a toy gun, there's been instances where robbers have pointed a toy gun or not even a gun
Per se.
simulation
Right.
type object. It's just something you pointed at somebody, they're going to think it's a weapon, you're going to get shot.
Well, you remember back in the 80s and 90s when we had a few cases of children that were shot by police officers because the officers mistook the firearm as being a real firearm, and they shot the child, and it's unfortunate, but, humans are unique. Each one of us are going to make our own decision, and a lot of us are in that fight mode where we want to survive, and we're going to go home and take care of our family. And if we think our lives are in danger, we're going to do whatever it takes to make sure we get home. So,
Yep, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And that was the main thing, or something important you just said, Joe, was fight. If somebody has the fight in them, even if you're already hurt or shot or something, if you have the fight to stay alive and or the drive, you'll probably survive because, unless you have a mortal injury, you don't die from a little cut or a scrape that might usually take you down for a second. But if you just keep going, unless you allow yourself to let the bad guy come over and finish you off, you'll probably make it.
that reminds me of a story my dad and my grandfather used to tell me. Supposedly, we had a sheriff in the family some way back in the Old West, okay? And these bad guys came into town to rob the bank. Well, he's walking down the street, and they crept up behind him, hit him over the head with their pistol. Before he hit the ground, he had pulled his gun and shot both of these bad guys and passed out because somebody knocked him out. So, I mean,
That's talk about muscle memory. and-
oh my God, heck yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so when he woke up, there's two guys next to him,
Sleeping a little bit longer than he had to.
A well-practiced, person has got skill. I wouldn't be messing with them.
Yes.
All right,
that.
we should probably take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to go into our show today. We're going to start it off with Glock history and a little bit about Glocks. And then, of course, we're going to jump into the Smith & Wesson. And like I said, I would have brought in Springfield Armory as well, because those are the top three guns, really, that are the sales force of today's firearm market. And that would be, the Glocks, the M&Ps, which have been around forever as well, and the Springfield Armory's XDs. And but we didn't. I don't think we had enough time today in the show, so I'm going to keep it to these two.
There might be some points where we say the XD is like this or something, but we're not going to focus on it specifically.
Exactly. So, hey, we'll be right back with you on the firing line, and of course, we do have Jason with us today.
You're listening to On the Firing Line on the information station.
This is On the Firing Line with Matt, Jim, and Joe. We'll be right back with you on the firing line. If you have any questions, give us a call at 888-625-1440 or in the Santa Maria area, 928-1440. Don't forget, you can always listen in on am1440.com.
Tactical Guns and Gear is the Central Coast leader in tactical rifles, pistols, shotguns, and accessories. Building the AR-15, lower receivers, parts kits, trigger groups, and a ton of other AR parts from the most popular companies are in stock, as well as a large selection of handguns, tactical shotguns, and bolt-action precision rifles.
They are also the home of the Women's 101 Firearms and Women's Advanced Pistol classes.
Located just off the 101 freeway in Santa Maria near the North Broadway exit, look for the big rifle sign on the freeway, as well as the giant 5-ton tactical military truck. Support your Second Amendment rights and visit Tactical Guns and Gear today.
On the Firing Line is happy to have Law Offices of Christopher Coleman as a sponsor. The Law Offices of Christopher Coleman is located in Santa Barbara on 2019B State Street, specializing in personal injury and, more importantly, the Second Amendment and On the Firing Line with Matt and Joe. Give them a call at 805-682-3352, serving the Santa Barbara, Santa Maria, and San Luis Obispo areas for over 25 years. On the Firing Line is happy to have Law Offices of Christopher Coleman as a sponsor. The Law Offices of Christopher Coleman is located in Santa Barbara on 2019B State Street, specializing in personal injury and, more importantly, the Second Amendment and On the Firing Line with Matt and Joe. Give them a call at 805-682-3352, serving the Santa Barbara, Santa Maria, and San Luis Obispo areas for over 25 years. You are on the Firing Line with Matt, Jim, and Joe. Be a part of today's show by calling in at 1-888-625-1440, or if you're in the local Santa Maria area, please give us a call at 928-1440. You are on the Firing Line with Matt, Jim, Joe, and Jason today. Be a part of today's show by calling in at 1-888-625-1440, or if you're in the local Santa Maria area, give us a call at 928-1440. All right.
All right, that's your Gun Brady bunch right there.
Boom.
Not the Brady campaign, though.
Be not confused.
All right, so I guess we're going to talk about Glock, a little bit of Glock history and a little bit of stuff from us, a little bit of that, and a little bit of this.
Yeah, well, the first thing, I wrote a little quick paragraph. I'm going to go ahead and read this.
Little Joe note.
Yeah, exactly. I called it a show note, but I think that's right. It's a little Joe note.
Little Joe note, okay.
It's my opinion that Glock is a great weapon, but the M&P semi-automatic is a much better weapon for me. The ergonomics are better mainly because I shoot from an isosceles stance. If you shoot from a Weaver stance, you may like the Glock better. The ergonomics of each gun with their proposed stances allow for front sight alignment to come up differently. This is by design and should be taken into consideration in your purchase between the two. I also think the M&P is a little sturdier and can handle a little more abuse. I also like the 3-dot sights of the M&P over the Glock because they're metal over the Glock's plastic U-dot sights, and I really don't like that U shape in the back.
It's just kind of bizarre.
It's different. The Glock was designed to use 58 or less individual parts, and actually, if you count them out, it comes out to 33 parts for a Glock. Although, and you know, it's funny because Glock did that on purpose. They were trying to keep the gun simple. It's much like the Walther P38. But the M&P only has 47 parts. So while it is, 13 parts more.
It's still well under that 58 mark.
Yes, exactly. I don't see this too much as a drawback, but here's some history and info on both pistols so that you can decide. And of course, we're going to draw from some of Matt's expertise here. He's recently taken a class where he got to learn some pretty neat stuff about the difference between these two things and how they can stand up to some serious training.
Yeah.
So it should be pretty interesting here.
Well, I don't know. What should we do? Start with a little Glock history?
Yeah.
I think so. Let's warm
All
up
right.
with a little Glock history.
Glock
Well,
history.
wait a minute. I got a question for you.
All right.
All right.
All right. So out of the four of us,
I know
who carries what?
Well, I carry
Yeah,
a Smith &
how
Wesson
do-
M&P.
I carry 2 Smith & Wesson M&Ps.
I carry a Glock. I also carry an HK. I carry...
No, M&P for me.
And I too also carry the Smith & Wesson M&P 40.
I wonder why.
So we all are Smith & Wessons. All right.
I remember selling you that Smith & Wesson.
No, you don't. That's his gun.
And I have loved that weapon ever since.
It's a great gun. It really is. Those are good things. All right. We do have this article. It's called Glock History. It's written by a CTD blogger. That's his internet nickname, I guess. Anyways, it starts out like this. In 1963, Gaston Glock founded a plastics company near Vienna, Austria. His moderately successful company primarily manufactured plastic curtain rings, along with the various other plastic products. Soon, Mr. Glock realized the strength and durability that could be realized by combining plastic and steel for particular military products, and he began supplying the Austrian military with various tools and components. When 2 military colonels were visiting in 1981 to oversee the manufacturing of plastic grenade components, Mr. Glock overheard the military officials lamenting to the fact that no one could manufacture military pistols that would meet their specifications. Mr. Glock interjected, saying that he could produce the pistols. The military men laughed at him, scorned him. But Gaston Glock is not someone who tolerates being laughed at. He immediately set to work in his basement designing a pistol that would not only meet but exceed the requirements of the Austrian military. Glock had no experience building pistols before. Despite Glock's inexperience in manufacturing small arms, they were nevertheless invited to participate in the bidding process. Glock's revolutionary design so impressed the military evaluators that in 1983, the Austrian army ordered 25,000 Glock pistols.
Awesome.
That's the way to start a business.
Yeah.
I was
Yes,
just
it
going to
is.
say that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just within the first 2 years there, he gets a $25,000 order from the military.
And can you imagine how many Glocks have been sold since then? In
25,000
millions.
is not even a number. That's
Yeah.
just like, psh.
In 1985, Glock established a factory in Smyrna, Georgia, so that they could better serve the United States firearm market. The Glock 17 became enormously popular in the United States and was readily adopted by law enforcement agencies. Around that same time, Glock developed their second model handgun, the G18 machine pistol.
Yes.
The G18 was based off the G17, but had a selector switch on the back of the slide that allowed the firearm to fire in semi or full auto. Because of its small size and extremely high cyclic rate of about 1,200 rounds per minute, you can't even load it that fast. The G18 was never widely used. Glock's
Has
popularity.
anybody ever tried to figure out how big a magazine you would need to kick out 1,200 rounds per minute? Because I'd like not to have to reload on that.
Yeah,
No.
I'd need a 1,200 round magazine.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, as far as that quick cyclic rate goes, real quick, I shot something that was 1,400 RPMs, and 25 rounds of 45 was 4 presses of the trigger. So, about 7 or 8 rounds each. So a 25 round mag went instantly.
Wow. So Glock's popularity increased demands from consumers for a compact model that could easily be concealed. And in 1988, Glock released the G19, a compact 9mm.
Yay.
Despite the smaller frame of the G19, it still had a 15-round capacity. It was around this time that Glock also built a plant in Hong Kong to meet demand from Southeast Asia. You start out in one country, 25,000 order. You go to America, you produce that, then you go to a smaller gun and start producing, and then Asia wants some too. Of course, I'm surprised they didn't just take the
Let's take it
designs.
from the beginning.
Yeah, why didn't they
I was
just
going to say,
use his?
aren't they like the #1 manufacturer in plastics over there at the cheapest price?
Right?
Yep.
I don't think Glock would allow them to do that, though. He'd send over hitmen.
With a Glock.
Right. As well as a second factory in Austria. Soon, Glock released their big bore models, the G20 and G21, in 10mm and 45 ACP. Remember I said I carry a Glock?
Right.
Well, mine's a G20, dagnabbit. 10mm.
Yeah.
These large pistols gained a huge following from American consumers who valued them for their large caliber stopping power. When the FBI developed their .40 Smith & Wesson caliber round with Smith & Wesson, Glock answered in 1990 with a G22, G23, and G22. Or the G22 was a full-size .40 caliber handgun, and the G23 was the compact model. And then later in 1996, the subcompact G26 in 9mm and G27 in .40 Smith & Wesson were both released due to increased demands from the American market, where concealed carry led to the need for a small, easily concealable firearm. This helped further appease the U.S. market, where demands for big bore subcompact handguns had been growing. Now, Glock has not been without some mystery and controversy throughout the history of the company. And we'll go ahead and get into the rest of that here in just a second. You know, when you are looking for something for concealed carry, off-duty police officers, or if you've got a concealed weapons permit in your state, or in California, if you can find the mystical unicorn.
Unicorn.
Yeah.
Yes.
Unicorn.
one horn owl?
I think that's the first time I've ever heard you say unicorn on the air. And you know what? By God, I'm proud of you.
Full disclosure, he says it all the time.
I still said it very nervously. I don't know that I can do that again.
And the duck came down with $100.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
So,
I think I lost my whole train of thought there.
yeah, you just derailed the train.
If you're looking for something in a concealed carry,
Yes.
and if you can get one in California, you have to admit. I mean, even though our difference in opinions of what type of firearm we want to carry, Glock did an outstanding job with their subcompact concealables. I mean, I've seen and worked with several officers when I worked for an agency that's what they carried, and you could never tell, and they were just as proficient with that as they were with their duty weapons. So
Right.
An amazing job and an amazing design, and that's why they became so popular.
Yeah, I do agree. I shot a couple of I think it was the 27s or something, the 40 that was real subcompact, and
Right.
I was really surprised at how actually controllable that firearm was. It really, just like you're saying, and you can wear it and not even know it's on. It doesn't take up space on you to the outs or to an eyeball looking at you. It doesn't really make a print, because it's such a small design.
Right.
So
Right,
definitely,
and a lot of times now you actually see the officers will wear it, and most people think that it's a cell phone case
Right.
because of its design. And with everybody wearing cell phones now and cell phone cases, it is so much easier to carry a concealable without anybody thinking twice about it.
right. Oh, that's a cell phone. That's when they think twice. That's the thought.
And then that's a good thing. Smith & Wesson actually came out with something that's called the Shield, which I think is under an inch wide.
Just about an inch,
Right.
0.95 or something.
I think that's one area where they've actually taken off ahead of Glock in concealed carry. Before that, their M&P Compact was probably pretty comparable to exactly what the Glock is.
Yeah.
And-
Well, go ahead. Don't mean to interrupt.
And that's what they were kind of going for, because they had to meet the market. Because you got to figure, Glock was the first one to come out with this kind of gun, first person to come out and do all this stuff, and he did set the pace for the market when it comes to this kind of thing.
Oh, I totally 100% agree with that. Go ahead, Jason.
Oh, I was going to say, innovation leads the way. I mean, a lot of times we look at the firearms that have been produced up to, Springfield Armory and the XD, Smith & Wesson with the M&P, Glock, even Colt, Kimber, all these other manufacturers really started taking the lead on taking compact weapons, and somebody's got to start that process, and Glock's the one that did it. And when they did it, they were lucky enough to come out with something that was phenomenal on the get-go. It's not
they got it.
something that they got it right the first time.
Exactly.
Literally.
Yep. But I was just going to say real quick. I don't but a lot of people in this class that Joe mentioned earlier, a lot of people were running Glock 19s and full-size M&Ps, and kind of the conversation around the campfire was, well, I wish there was a Smith & Wesson M&P 19 size pistol, you know, and so that would be the perfect gun, you know. So it was kind of like a Glock 19, but if it was Smith & Wesson, then it would work. So, you know, there's a lot of ways to do that. And like Joe also said, I think they kind of did it with the M&P Compact, where it's just about that size, a little bit smaller, I think, than a 19, but right about in that size. So, but, you know, it's to be debated. It's totally a personal thing, and they're both good. They're both going to usually work 99.99% of the time. And we'll get back into it.
Yep. All right. We are going to take a break in about a minute or two here. Before we do that, I want to tell one more little story about...
Give us a little more history, Joe.
Yes. On July 27th of 1999, Gaston Glock was brutally attacked by a hitman contracted by Glock's one-time business consultant, Charles Ewert. Glock fought back, powered by his indomitable will and years of experience, overpowering the would-be assassin and knocking him unconscious. Gaston Glock immediately suspected who his betrayer was, and while being treated at the hospital, contacted his bankers and immediately started transferring tens of millions of dollars out of the reach of Ewert.
Wow.
Glock succeeded in safeguarding $40 million in this fashion before Ewert could block the transfer of another $30 million. Ewert was eventually convicted of attempted murder along with his hired gun, Pursuer. To say that Ewert's betrayal was an enormous hit to Glock would be an understatement. Glock had already been known as an untrusting and secretive man and became even more paranoid according to some insiders. Ewert had been Glock's right-hand man for over 15 years, helping to propel Glock from a small military arms manufacturer in Austria to becoming one of the largest suppliers of sidearms for law enforcement agencies throughout the world. Wow. And further investigations both in Austria and the United States resulted in fraud and embezzlement charges being brought up against Ewert. And allegations state that Ewert funneled more than $100 million to himself and attempted to fraudulently take over Unipatent, Glock's holding company, for himself. Gaston Glock had continued to oversee the matriarch growth of his company. And when the Glock pistols were initially released, the rumors ran rampant about the guns, including one rumor that could pass undetected throughout airport metal detectors. I remember when that came out. Remember the movie The Jekyll?
Exactly, yeah.
That was huge back then.
Yes.
Yep. They said, what would they would say, like, get one of those European that starts with an A guns. Those ones can't go through metal detectors.
Right, I remember that.
You know, it was like, okay.
And the rumors proved totally fictional, though. And while the Glock safe action pistol consists of over a pound of steel, the Combat Tupperware nickname comes from the almost completely made of polymer frame. The Glock Model 17 was adopted into service with the Austrian police and military forces in 1982 as the P-80 and has since captured the world's and the United States' attention as the premier duty sidearm.
Yeah.
All right, on that note, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, come back with you. We'll be right back with you on the fire line to go over some of the generations of Glocks and, of course, hit up M&P. And again, don't forget, we do have Jason with us today, so stay tuned. We'll be right back.
We'll be back to more of On the Firing Line with Joe and Jim after this.
This is On the Firing Line with Matt, Jim, and Joe. We'll be right back with you on the firing line. If you have any questions, give us a call at 888-625-1440 or in the Santa Maria area, 928-1440. Don't forget, you can always listen in on am1440.com.
Tactical Guns and Gear is the Central Coast leader in tactical rifle, pistols, shotguns, and accessories. Built in the AR-15, lower receivers, parts kits, trigger groups, and a ton of other AR parts from the most popular companies are in stock, as well as a large selection of handguns, tactical shotguns, and bolt-action precision rifles.
They are also the home of the Women's 101 Firearms and Women's Advanced Pistol classes.
Located just off the 101 freeway in Santa Maria near the North Broadway exit, look for the big rifle sign on the freeway, as well as the giant 5-ton tactical military truck. Support your Second Amendment rights and visit Tactical Guns and Gear today. Tactical Guns and Gear is the Central Coast leader in tactical rifle, pistols, shotguns, and accessories. Built in the AR-15, lower receivers, parts kits, trigger groups, and a ton of other AR parts from the most popular companies are in stock, as well as a large selection of handguns, tactical shotguns, and bolt-action precision rifles.
They are also the home of the Women's 101 Firearms and Women's Advanced Pistol classes.
Located just off the 101 freeway in Santa Maria near the North Broadway exit, look for the big rifle sign on the freeway, as well as the giant 5-ton tactical military truck. Support your Second Amendment rights and visit Tactical Guns and Gear today.
You are on the firing line with Matt, Jim, and Joe today.
Be a part of today's show by calling in at 1-888-625-1440. Or if you're in the Santa Maria area, give us a call at 928-1440.
And of course, don't forget to check us out on Facebook on the firing line with Matt and Joe.
Let them hear that. All right, we're bumped. We're good. We're good to go.
Yeah, you're
on
bumped.
the
I'm
firing
bumped.
line. We're bumped up. All right, so we're talking about
bumping along.
Glocks and.
Bumping along.
Will you guys shush?
Unicorn.
Wait a
Thank
second.
you, Jason. All right.
Oh man, I'm never gonna get that down.
Talking about Glocks and
Never.
Smith & Wesson
Magical.
M&Ps, you magical unicorn. All right. So Glock, they've had many generations of. Generation would be a different model, I guess, would be the easiest way to quickly explain that. Generations, the Glock has added many evolutionary changes over the past 28 years, with the major model changes identified as generations. Glock is currently releasing its 4th generation pistols all along its model line. So right now, they're on the 4th generation, which is quote-unquote the new hot thing to have, but we'll get into that too, because that might not be so much the case.
Yep.
Tell us about Generation 1, Joe.
The first generation Glock, as it's become known as, was introduced in the U.S. market in 1984. Glock pistols continue their rise in status and production with very few changes. Glock did switch to a captive recoil spring fairly early in the pistol's life, and at one point, the serial number became stamped on embedded steel plates in the pistol's dust cover. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, they jumped to the second generation, which was released in 1988.
1980 Glock.
In 1988, Glock added checkering on the front and back straps on all of its models. And in 1990, the locking block was enlarged, and additional crosspin was added on the non-9mm models. That's where it holds in the different action pieces, like the trigger and I think the ramp as well.
Yep.
Within the subassembly.
Yep.
Now, for the third generation, in 1998, Glock changed the frame substantially. An accessory rail was added, officially known as the Universal Glock Rail. Thumb rests and finger grooves were added, and the extractor was changed to also function as a loaded chamber indicator, and the OD color was added to the lineup. So they added a new color, and they put the extractor on the outside. That way you could actually work on it and change it out if you needed to pretty easily.
So chances are, if you have a Glock that you've bought semi-recently within the past 5 years or so, if you bought it new, chances are it's a Gen 3. Especially if you're in California, it's definitely probably a Gen 3.
Yeah, because in California, you cannot buy a Generation 4. Generation 4 has not been submitted or has not passed the testing that California has. And, of course, now with...
but I can.
Yes.
That's because he lives in
Sorry,
Unicorn
just had to throw
Land.
that in there.
But the question is, would you
Unicorn
want to,
Land, right.
Jason? Would you want to?
That is the question.
You know what, though? I have to say this. Between the Glock and the M&P, I have seen they're great guns. We all agree that they're both a great gun, and it's always a personal choice for how you shoot.
Yep.
But, when they came out with the Gen 4 Glocks, I did shoot a few of them here, and they're a good gun. I mean, you're not going to take anything away from them. It's just...
I will take much
It's
away
all
from
personal.
him.
Yep.
Well,
no,
I would take
I
more
agree
of
with
the
you.
M&Ps, but you know what I mean.
No,
Oh, yeah.
I agree. I mean, if there was one, if they're sitting right next to each other on a table, I would just instinctively go to the M&P. But if Joe beat me to the M&P, I wouldn't really have any problems going to the Glock.
Yeah,
you
same
know?
here.
So, I guess
Unless it was a fourth generation, then
you know.
I'd throw rocks.
you don't. Yeah, there you go.
Well, no, seriously, fourth generation Glocks have been known to have some problems. They've had to rework some situations because they've changed the gun. It's almost a completely different gun. But with that being said, hey, a gun's a gun.
Yeah, and I believe the Gen 4s came out around 2010.
Yep.
Okay, 2010-ish. And it was pretty much the same thing. The big changes were the grip circumference. They added back straps that kind of like the M&P has the 3 small, medium, large back straps. I know the Gen 4 added the same idea, but it kind of C-clamps around as opposed to going right in. So it still makes it kind of bulky for me anyway. If I was going to use it, I wouldn't use one of those at all.
While you're talking about the grip and that kind of thing, the removal of the back strap, there's a reason why they did that. When Glock first designed this gun, he wanted a pistol that would come up with the front sight sitting right in the middle of that U naturally.
Yes, I know.
And that's why they have that huge hump on the back of the Glocks.
Yep.
And the reason they did that is because during the time period, most people were taught the Weaver stance, which is not, pushing both arms out and locking them out. It's actually locking one and almost teacup in the gun, or even a modified Weaver stance where you can grab the side of the gun, but one arm's cocked while the other one's locked straight. And if you shoot that way, then when you bring up the gun, ergonomically speaking, your front sight is going to come straight up between the field goal.
Yeah, so you're going to be aiming a little bit high, so to speak.
If you go to an isosceles, your front sight's always going to be pushed up higher than what it should be. But with that said, he had to change the back end a little bit and give people the option to be able to shoot either way. And that's one thing. That's one of the main things why I kind of like the semi-automatic that Smith & Wesson put out, which was the M&P. You remember, the M&P had been around for a long time. It first started out as a revolver.
All the old, you see Smith & Wesson M&P 38 revolvers.
Yeah,
from
the old
60s
Model 10.
and stuff. Model 10, thank you. Yeah.
Used to be it was called, if I remember correctly, for a long time it was the police special. It was a 38 special that was the Smith & Wesson M&P, unless I'm wrong.
Well, I do believe they did have a 38 special model. Yep. Of course, a lot of those were in the old days were the Colt. Police.
Exactly. Those were the Colt 38 specials.
Right.
Generally.
Was that what? Okay.
Yeah.
Because I just remember I know a couple of them that were out there were Smith & Wesson, but I remember the differences and kind of going back to the stance. And this is where you'll hear the four of us kind of have a differing opinion if we carry something different. Is ergonomically, it's a unicorn thing. I can't say it. If
Ergo unicorn.
We try to, right, ergo unicorn. If in a stance in a natural fight, unless you're trained or unless you're used to shooting a certain way, it's kind of like punching your hands out. And I know that that's kind of how the four of us shoot is when we draw out. It's like a natural punch. And if you were to do that with a Glock, it wasn't designed for that purpose. It was more designed, of course, for the Weaver, where it absolutely, in law enforcement, was taught for decades. That,
absolutely.
It was a modified Weaver or a Weaver stance, and it was always a teacup or a cocked arm, and people couldn't understand why they couldn't hit anything. Well, that's because they didn't understand the design of the weapon.
Yeah, and the truth of the matter is, you train and you practice all your training in one stance. So, for me, it's isosceles. That's what all of us do, I think. But as soon as your body starts moving, you're not in isosceles and you're not in Weaver. Who knows what you're in anymore? But to me, the big thing that I got from that was no matter what your position you're in, hold the gun as if you are in that isosceles squared off stance.
Right. Right, absolutely.
Even if you have to be moving,
And, well, I was just going to say, if you're moving, which a lot of people don't understand, standing in one place and shooting down a gun range is one thing.
It's nice.
One of the best trainings I've ever had was the move and shoot, and quite honestly, I did the most of it at the gun shop. With you guys, it was our league.
That'd be
shoots.
Tactical Guns and Gear now.
Right. It wasn't that when I was there, but Tactical Guns and Gear, it allows with the Tuesday night shoots, it allows you to understand there's not just standing there. If you're going to defend yourself, move and shoot. Understand how the weapon works. And again, ergonomically speaking, if you're shooting with a gun, know how it is supposed to be functioned.
Yep. God, Glock should be paying us right now. I mean, they're not paying us at all for any of this. Okay. This is on us to do this.
I'm going to tell another story. Okay. Something that happened.
That should lead us into Smith & Wesson then, probably.
This will bring us to Smith & Wesson. And, I'm not hating on anything. Just to let you know, those are straight facts. So in about a 3-day class, I saw over 15,000 rounds get shot, or I was at least present for that. There was about 12 people running Glocks, 3 people running M&Ps. I saw 3 Glocks go down to the point where they were unusable for the remainder of the class. One of them was due to a real thick clay getting in the barrel, pulling the trigger, and bulging the barrel. So that could have happened to any gun, I guess. And I'm not quite sure what happened to the other 2, except I know that they had to borrow weapons for the rest of the class. That didn't happen with any of the Smith & Wessons. They were getting very dirty. I mean, they were so muddy at times where I was literally just spitting my own spit into the action, trying to get a little bit of that grit out of there. But, moral is, I guess, myself and the other two guys running M&Ps, we didn't get any malfunctions, even when there was almost impossible for the thing to go off, it would seem. But some of the Glocks seemed to not necessarily come up to that par. Well, that gave me confidence carrying an M&P.
There you go.
I like to see it. And I do believe the couple of the ones that went down were Gen 4s, but I can't really confirm or deny that for sure. So it's just something to think about,
Oh, look, we're going to have a correction here for Jason coming up on this. All right, so let's go ahead and start off with this. The Smith & Wesson M&P. For those of you who don't know what M&P means, that means military and police. The moniker of Smith & Wesson's new military and police pistol made me stop and think. Anyone with even a passing interest in handguns instantly recognizes the phrase military and police as the appellation attached to what is, without a doubt, one of the most famous American handguns ever produced. The Smith & Wesson Military and Police Revolver, introduced in 1899. It became the standard by which every other medium-frame double-action revolver would be judged, as well as serving as a launching platform for one of the most influential handgun cartridges in the history, the .38 Smith & Wesson Special.
Yep.
The popularity of the M&P AK Model 10 revolver grew so quickly that it was the most widely used police revolver in the free world. Its reputation...
hold on a second. Wait. I just want to hear I was right. That's all I want to hear.
Well, you weren't totally wrong.
Dude, no, give it to me. You owe me this one.
Okay. Jason was right. There really are unicorns. Its reputation led to it being issued by many military forces, to say nothing of its immense popularity with civilian shooters.
Yep.
Now, to me, the Smith & Wesson's decision to baptize its new pistol thus was risky because it has quite a large legacy to live up to. But it's also a testament to the confidence the company has in the new design's ability to meet and surpass the heritage of its legendary predecessor.
Yeah, and I think that's totally within scope, too. That's just right on.
Now, keep this in mind out there, okay? The M&P pistol, inside and out, the M&P is not a revamped Smith & Wesson Sigma.
Is not.
Man, how many times did we hear that when we
we
first started getting those?
Yeah.
And we still do occasionally. Well, I have a Sigma. What's the difference? And it's kind of like, well, everything's a difference. Get rid of the Sigma and get this.
And the Sigma largely was designed after the Glock, and I think Smith & Wesson got sued and had to change their stuff.
They did.
Yes, sir. They
absolutely. They got sued for infringement of patent and the patent rights, and they literally paid out a chunk of change.
Oh yeah.
For a weapon that, quite honestly, because I had a first generation Sigma series, and it was a tough thing because I was always a Smith & Wesson fan, and to get that, I was thinking, great, I can now have Smith & Wesson version of a Glock. I'll be honest, it was a huge disappointment, and I got rid of it, and ended up going back to a Smith & Wesson 4506, which was a tank and a 45 caliber.
Yep.
Sounds like Highway Patrol. According to the Smith & Wesson's Joe Bergeron, there is not a single interchangeable part between the two pistols, the M&P and the Sigma. So it is a completely new gun. While a lot of the ideas might have come from Glock, they've changed them and they made them better. Glock has a stamped out sear, whereas the Smith & Wesson M&P actually has a machined sear. They both use sub-assemblies, but the takedown is completely different. I mean, there are so many differences that it's not even funny now.
Yeah, just the quality of metals in the M&P alone, well, you just said it, but how the Glock has stamped, the other one, the M&P has machined parts, machined versus beat stamped every time.
Absolutely. And if you ever need to demonstrate...
Well, not only that, but you remember how, Joe, you used to laugh at me when I tried to take apart a Glock because I had such a difficult time getting the slide release to engage. Soon as we got the M&P, sorry, that background noise. As soon as I got the M&P, you taught me within 30 seconds, and I was able to disassemble the weapon without hesitation, without a problem. With the Glock, I always had a difficult time with that stupid slide release.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, just doing the two sides at once isn't as easy as it seems, I guess.
But with the M&P, I
Right.
think, what was the fastest I've ever taken one of those apart and put it back together?
I think it was like around 9 seconds or something.
Yeah, I literally took the whole thing apart, took it down, and then put it back together in like less than 9 seconds.
Yeah, we would do this for fun. You know, okay, you go, we time each other. And I was right. I think I was at like 11 seconds and he was at 9, but incredibly fast. Most people, I was telling some of my buddies that, and they didn't even believe it was possible. You can't take a gun apart and put it back. Well, you're just pulling a barrel out, pulling the spring out, putting the barrel back in, putting the spring back in, and racking it.
Yeah.
And it's good to go. So that says something about the simplicity of the design and why it works so well, probably.
This is very true. The M&P slide and barrel are made from bars of solid stainless steel and are then through hardened rather than case hardened. The latter process, which is used by many manufacturers, merely hardens the surface of the steel, while the former process, as its name indicates, produces both external and internal hardening to improve durability and reliability. The slide rails of the M&P are thicker than those of many other brands of pistols. M&P barrels have a so-called cone muzzle. This style of barrel provides consistent positioning for enhancing accuracy, but at the same time produces less friction as the slide travels rearward. At the rear, top of the barrel, it's a half moon cut that allows the shooter to verify whether or not there is a cartridge in the chamber. So basically there's a hole through the top that you can kind of see down and see the very crown of your brass. And important to those shooters who roll their own, the broach rifled barrel allows the use of lead bullet ammunition. You know, that's a good point.
Yeah.
In a Glock, you cannot shoot lead ammunition. You can have lead in the ammunition, but it has to be jacketed.
Right.
If it wasn't jacketed and if it was just lead, it would not shoot the same because Glocks use a what is that? It's not octagon, is it?
No.
Polygon.
Yes, I know what you're trying to say.
Unicorn.
Yes, unicorn type
polyunicorn.
rifling.
Polyunicorn rifle.
It's not
polygonal rifling.
Polygonal rifling. That's exactly what it is.
Woohoo, I got it right.
Whereas the Smith & Wesson actually uses real rifling, so you have actual lands and grooves instead of like a swirl in the metal going down and causing the round to turn. So that's another thing that I like about the Smith & Wesson. Now, both the slide and barrel receive Smith & Wesson's proprietary melanite finish, a heated treatment process that protects the surface while going into the metal itself. This provides enhanced protection from wear, tear, solvents, salts, and whatever Mother Nature throws at it, combined with the thorough hardening process to produce a surface hardness of 68 HRC.
Wow. That means you could probably even soak it in a thing for a few hours.
You could probably even wash it in a hotel sink.
You know what? I bet you could. I'm willing to bet my life on it.
Little soap and water, and you're back to normal.
Yeah, it was good as
I think I know somebody that's done that.
Yeah, you might even be good as gold when you're done.
The extractor's generously sized claws ensure reliability extraction, and its external location makes repair and replacement fast and simple. M&P pistols come standard with Novak low-mount sights, one of the most highly regarded sighting arrangements on the market today. These are the 3-dot system to aid in rapid sight alignment and enhance target acquisition for those persons or agencies desiring higher tech equipment. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was Trijicon night sights are optional. That's what he was going
night
at.
sights on it. Yep.
But what I was going to say real quick is the Novaks that come on the newer M&Ps, they have a real sharp 90-degree edge right on the sight. So if you do need to do that one-handed manipulation and use your belt hook or your holster or whatever hard point you can, it's real easy to hook it on there and just push it straight down, and you're going to basically do a tap rack with one hand.
Right, that's in case you get wounded or something else.
Yeah, whatever. If you're holding your kid's hand with your left hand and you got to do the business with your right hand, the Glocks do not have that luxury.
No.
You can still get a hold on it, but having it being at that slight little angle.
I can shoot my M60 in one hand and my M&P in the other.
Yeah, while smoking a cigar.
Yes, and popping out of the water.
With a lit cigar.
Yeah. And dry hair. Yeah, Braddock, right?
All right. Okay, so Trijicon sights are optional. Night sights are always nice, but they're by no means a must. Usually at night, it's going to be close. It's going to be fast, scarier. You're probably just going to punch the gun out straight towards that bad guy and press the trigger.
Absolutely.
That's just reality, folks.
And
All
that's
right.
where training comes into play.
Yep.
Listen to Jason. So every once in a while, he's got the magic unicorn.
All right.
Every now and then.
The front of the slide features a unique two-stage tapered profile design to ease reholstering of the pistol, especially when the task has to be performed one-handed, as Matt was just talking about too. Deep cut serrations at the rear of the slide allow it to be retracted smoothly, even with wet hands or when wearing gloves. Another nice feature is that all the edges of the slide, including the Novak sights, have been beveled to prevent abrasion to the shooter's hands when loading or unloading. And I'll add a little bit to that when you're concealed carrying. Because I tell you what, having a gun rub against your side while you're concealed carrying is, oh my gosh.
You won't wear it if it's uncomfortable, and so it's useless, if it's rubbing against you. Yeah, you'll know it's there, but in an extremely negative way, not in a positive way.
Yep. Last but not least, the full-length stainless steel guide rod is surrounded by a captive recoil spring that ensures smooth operation and consistent lockup, and also greatly eases the task of disassembly. And breech locking is by means of a variation of the tried and true Browning method. The barrel and slide are locked together by the barrel hood bearing on the front edge of the ejection port when the pistol is fired. These two parts recoil together for a short distance, whereupon an angled lug on the bottom of the barrel bears on the frame-mounted locking block and is cammed down, releasing the slide, which continues to the rear, extracting and ejecting the spent cartridge case. As the recoil spring pulls the slide forward, it strips the next round out of the magazine and chambers it. As the slide and barrel go into battery, the barrel hood once again moves up into the ejection port, locking the two units together.
Yep. That's, kind of like if you have one of these guns, you might say, well, the barrel is moving around, or when I pull the slide back, how come the barrel's not in place, type thing.
Looks like it's canted upwards.
Yeah, it looks like it's canted upwards,
down.
and it's kind of shaky and rattly, and that's all part of the design to absorb that recoil upon firing it. And let me tell you, it works really well.
Yep.
And it's a good design. Let's see what else. A negative, but this is to any semi-automatic pistol. If you press it up to something and you're at point blank range and you actually have to make contact with, say, somebody's on, your back's against the wall and there's somebody with a knife beating the hell out of you, and you got to press this thing into their stomach to get them away from you. If you press it too hard, you will actually take the gun out of battery.
Yep.
And if you'll squeeze the trigger and nothing will happen.
No, that'll do that with the Glock too, right?
Yep, that's what I was saying. Yeah. All of these.
There's actually several, and Matt, you said it best. Most semi-automatic handguns, when the slide is depressed even an eighth of an inch, it will not engage. And unfortunately, there's been a lot of cases where military and law enforcement personnel, even in self-defense situations with with the general population, they don't understand that. And I know I keep saying this, but whether Glock or M&P or whatever pistol you choose, understand training is a huge part of it. Understanding your weapon, knowing what it's capable of, knowing what it's not capable of, and being comfortable with it. Ergonomically speaking, unicorn speaking, doesn't matter. You have to be able to know. Don't go out and buy a gun and then go, great, now I have something for self-defense, and then put it on a shelf or just wear it on your hip and shoot it once every 6 months.
Yeah, that's a huge one.
This is your life that you're depending on.
And
this
I totally
is where
agree with you.
One other thing before, because we only have 2 minutes left, I want to get this out. With these M&Ps, they have interchangeable back straps, making this gun an absolutely fantastic gun for the first-time shooter or for women, because they have the smaller grip and the height of bore over hand ratio is so good on these guns that a lot of women don't have problems even if they can't lock their wrists as strong as some other people can.
Yeah, the limp wrist issue isn't as much of an issue with this gun,
right?
Because the web of your hand, if you can imagine, is so far up on where the tang is. The action's coming straight back instead of giving you that whip motion.
Yep, and
for the most part,
that's an important thing when you're trying to pick out a firearm.
Yes,
I think that if you can put yourself maybe an ATAX or Apex tactical kit or some sort of duty trigger setup on these things, these guns will run circles around most Glocks, in my opinion.
Well, my experience was it was raining and I was in the mud and it kept going. Well, left to the right, maybe those guns didn't keep going. So I've learned I'm capable in it. What like Jason was just saying, if you buy a gun, go out and get training, because either the gun's the tool and you're the master, or you're the tool and the gun's the master. So decide right now what you want to be.
I don't want to be a unicorn.
Yep.
Hey, Jason, thank you very much for joining us on the show today. I appreciate you calling back, and hopefully you'll keep calling in with us, because it's always fun to have you here with us.
I will do my best,
Yes,
Joe.
sir. Thanks for helping us keep up the good fight, and stay cool over there in that part of the world.
Definitely will. Thanks, you guys.
All right.
All right.
And don't forget, everybody, next weekend is Labor Day weekend.
Yep.
Be safe. Don't go out and drink and drive. Don't go shoot your guns while you're drinking or
Yep.
after you've been drinking.
Don't go stupid places with stupid people and do stupid things, and
That's
you will
right.
be all right. But thank you so much for listening to us today. Thank you, Jason, for calling in and being part of the show. You are on the firing line with Matt and Joe. See you next week.